You are about to hear something that identifies the narrow window of opportunity to witness the departure of a visitor from the deep galaxy. Researchers at the European Space Agency and the Subaru Observatory are explaining that 3I Atlas is currently making its final stand in the night sky as it crosses the constellation Gemini in late April 2026. This digital reconstruction reveals that after its extreme brush with the Sun and a gravitational slingshot from Jupiter, the comet is now picking up speed for its permanent exit into interstellar space. A scientific disruption occurs when we look at the comet's current brightness. While most comets fade as they move away from the Sun, 3I Atlas has surprised the world with a post-perihelion flare. Researchers suggest that the heat from its solar pass finally reached the deep, methane-rich layers of its core, causing the comet to glow much brighter than expected. As of this week, it is currently estimated at a magnitude of roughly 12 to 13, meaning it has slipped past the limit of the naked eye, but is a prime target for amateur astronomers. To actually see it before it's gone, you will need more than just your eyes. A measurable recalculation of its position shows it is best viewed in the western sky just after twilight. Researchers contrast the old methods of scanning with the new, smart telescope era. If you have a digital or plate-solving telescope with at least a 4-inch aperture, you can lock onto its precise coordinates in the heart of Gemini. Through a lens, you aren't just looking at a rock, you are seeing a pear-shaped dust tail and a glowing green coma that hasn't been seen in our solar system for billions of years. Every new simulation of its exit vector introduces a bittersweet realization. Once 3I Atlas passes the orbit of Saturn later this year, it will be too faint for even the most powerful backyard equipment. Deeper implications suggest that this is our final handshake with an object that likely formed before our own sun was even born. We invite you to find a dark sky location this week and look toward the twins of Gemini. You aren't just watching a comet, you are witnessing the final seconds of a multi-billion-year journey before it vanishes back into the eternal dark. C. 2025. N1. Designated as 3I Atlas, is currently traversing the inner solar system on a trajectory that suggests it is not bound by the gravitational well of our Sun. The orbital eccentricity of this object has been measured at a value significantly exceeding 1.0, a mathematical signature of an interstellar interloper rather than a local remnant of the Oort cloud. Data from the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, indicates that the light curve of this visitor does not align with the standard outgassing of a volatile rich cometary nucleus. It arrived without the expected fanfare of a massive dust tail, appearing instead as a sterile, shadowed geometry against the backdrop of the constellation Delphinus. The velocity at which it moves suggests it has been falling through the vacuum for millions of years, yet its sudden deceleration near the perihelion point defies the standard models of solar radiation pressure. We are looking at a body that behaves like a rock, but possesses the thermal signature of something far more complex. What if the dimming we observe isn't the result of distance, but of intent? There are fragments of records from the early 17th century, whispered observations of the wandering star that breathed, which mirror the exact orbital path we are tracking tonight. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. It is a recurring ghost in our telescopes, a visitor that returns just as we develop the tools to properly misinterpret it. We find ourselves staring into the lens, wondering if the darkness between the stars is actually empty or simply waiting for us to look away. Adjust your breathing to the rhythm of the sensor sweep. You are merely an observer in a very long line of observers, watching a light that will not stay. The data remains incomplete because the object refuses to be measured twice in the same way. The high desert of the Atacama remains one of the few places on this planet where the silence of the Earth meets the absolute clarity of the vacuum above. Within this desolate expanse, a jagged fragment of primordial carbon and silicate, known as 3I Atlas, is currently carving a path through the inner solar system that defies every standard orbital model we possess. The Pan-STARRS survey and the Minor Planet Center have been tracking this object since its sudden appearance in July of 2025, noting that its trajectory is not a closed loop, but a hyperbolic escape velocity. Its speed is increasing in a way that suggests non-gravitational acceleration, yet there is no visible coma, no venting of gas, and no debris trail. It is a dark, silent needle threading the eye of our gravitational field. What if this isn't a stray rock, but a scout that has finally reached its destination? There are ancient Sumerian cylinders that describe a guest star called the Eye of the Abyss, which appeared exactly every 3,600 years to observe the ripening of the world. You might think we are just looking at a comet, but the math tells a different story, one of activation rather than erosion. Take a breath and let the scale of this settle over you. You are a witness to a visitor that hasn't been here since the dawn of written language. The volcanic peaks of Hawaii house the Keck Observatory, where the air is thin enough to feel the weight of the stars pressing down on your skin. It was here, in August of 2025, that researchers detected a rhythmic pulse of low-frequency radio waves emanating from the core of 3I Atlas. This signal does not resemble the chaotic noise of a rotating pulsar or the static of a solar wind interaction. It is a steady, 3-second interval that suggests a mechanical internal structure. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb has noted that the object's dimensions are unusually elongated, resembling a shard of glass more than a sphere of ice. It is difficult to explain how a natural formation could maintain such a fragile shape while traveling at 40 kilometers per second through the debris-strewn plain of the ecliptic. Perhaps we are not looking at a natural formation at all, but a piece of derelict technology that has just been switched back on. In the medieval period, nobles in France recorded a flaming lance that hung in the sky for 3 weeks before vanishing into the constellation of Lyra. You might believe our modern sensors have solved the mystery, but they have only provided us with more precise ways to be confused. By October 29th, 2025, the object will be at its closest approach to Earth, and our window to understand its intent will begin to close. Are you seeing any unusual lights in your local sky? Share your observations in the comments below, as the official records often lag behind what the public sees. The paradox remains that the more data we collect, the more the object seems to retreat into impossibility. Let us consider the peculiar geometry of the shadow cast by 3I Atlas as it passes between us and the distant flickering heart of the Cygnus constellation. In the sterile, air-conditioned silence of the Lincoln Near-Earth Asteroid Research Facility, computers have been crunching the numbers of its light curve for months, and the results are, to put it mildly, deeply inconvenient. A standard comet or a typical stony asteroid will tumble through the void, reflecting sunlight in a predictable, rhythmic pulse, a cosmic heartbeat that tells us its shape and its speed. But 3I Atlas does not pulse. It shimmers with a mathematical irregularity that suggests its surface is not made of craters and regolith, but of shifting, overlapping plates of a material that absorbs more light than it reflects. Unfortunate timing for those who prefer their physics simple. Those two words are currently doing a lot of work in the corridors of the European Space Agency. If you were to stand on the surface of this object, assuming your boots could find purchase on its slick, non-Euclidean angles, you would notice that the horizon does not curve away from you in a gentle arc. Instead, the radar altimetry suggests a series of flat, polished planes as if a mountain had been folded into a box and then stretched until it screamed, "Doctor!" Jacqueline McClary has noted that the density of the object is less than that of water, yet its structural integrity survived a high-velocity transit through the asteroid belt without shedding a single gram of mass. That is not natural physics, that is activation. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. When we look at the propulsion of 3I Atlas, we look for the outgassing effect, the plumes of steam and cyanide gas that push a comet along like a primitive steam engine. We see nothing, no vapor, no dust, and yet the object is accelerating. By November of 2025, its velocity will have increased by an additional 3 kilometers per second without any visible source of thrust. This led certain researchers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to suggest that the object is utilizing a solar sail, but even that theory falls apart under scrutiny. A solar sail requires a massive, thin membrane to catch the pressure of light, but 3I Atlas remains a compact, dense shard. Now, you could argue that we are simply seeing the effects of a masked thermal emission, but that would imply an internal heat source far beyond the capabilities of a radioactive core. It implies a reactor. It implies intent. Imagine, for a moment, the year 1609, while Galileo was first turning his rudimentary lenses toward the moon. A group of sailors off the coast of the Cape of Good Hope recorded a silver splinter that hung motionless in the sky for 3 nights before streaking toward the sun with the speed of a thought we dismiss. These accounts as folklore or atmospheric phenomena, but the orbital path recorded in those archaic ship logs matches the pre-calculation of 3I Atlas to within 5 decimal places. We are not meeting a new neighbor. We are being visited by an old landlord who has finally returned to check the locks. You might think that if there were an interstellar craft in our backyard, the government would simply tell us, but here is why you're wrong. The panic caused by a rock is manageable. The panic caused by a machine that refuses to communicate is an existential threat to every social structure we have built. Citing precautionary protocols, agencies like the National Reconnaissance Office have already classified the high-resolution imagery taken by our orbital platforms. They tell us it is for national security, but the truth is likely far more humbling. They simply don't know what they are looking at. The humor of the situation, if you can call it that, is that we have spent 50 years sending golden records and radio greetings into the deep. And when the deep finally sends something back, it doesn't even bother to say hello. It just moves past us with the quiet indifference of a traveler passing a graveyard. By the middle of December, the object will begin its swing around the Sun, a maneuver known as a perihelion passage. During this time, the gravitational stresses should, by all accounts, tear a loosely bound asteroid into 1,000 pieces. However, the simulation models from the University of Arizona suggest that 3I Atlas is reinforcing its own structural lattice as the heat increases. It is using the Sun's energy not just for speed, but for repair. This is where the conspiracy theories of the 20th century begin to feel less like fiction and more like a delayed realization. There is a myth among the indigenous peoples of the high Andes concerning the messenger of the cold fire. They say it arrives when the world is too loud, acting as a mirror that reflects our own technological noise back at us until we go quiet from the sheer scale of the comparison. As you lie there tonight, listening to the hum of your own electronics, consider that 3I Atlas is currently listening to that same hum from 200 million kilometers away. It is absorbing our television broadcasts, our encrypted military signals, our late-night whispers. It is a sponge for information, drifting through our reality and soaking up every bit of data we leak into the vacuum. But let me back up. To understand the true mystery of the October approach, we have to look at the mathematical recurrence of the number 7 in the object's telemetry. Its rotation period is 7 minutes. Its surface temperature at the poles is 7 degrees Kelvin above absolute zero. Its approach velocity is a multiple of 7. In many ancient cultures, 7 was the number of completion, the number of the spheres, the number of the hidden steps. While our scientists look at the numbers as mere data, a historian might look at them as a signature left by something that understands our psychology better than we understand its biology. You might find yourself wondering why the moon doesn't seem to affect its trajectory. Normally, a body of this mass, passing so close to the Earth-Moon system, would be tugged and swayed by our satellite's gravity. 3I Atlas, however, moves as if the moon isn't there. It is nullifying the local gravitational field in a localized bubble. This is the kind of technology that Avi Loeb has hinted at, a manipulation of space-time that makes the laws of Kepler look like children's drawings. If this object is indeed a probe, we must ask, who sent it and what are they waiting for? The countdown to October 29th is not just a date on a calendar, it is a deadline for our relevance. If we do not find a way to signal it, to prove that we are more than just a noisy biological colony, it will simply carry our silence back to the stars. There is an old, dry irony in the fact that we spent billions looking for a wow signal from a distant star, only to have the signal arrive in the form of a silent, 60-meter-long obsidian shard that refuses to make a sound. It is a very quiet joke at the expense of our vanity. Now, consider the possibility that 3I Atlas isn't here to look at us at all. What if the Sun is the destination and we are just an obstacle in the driveway? The way the object aligns itself with solar flares suggests it is feeding on the coronal mass ejections, harvesting the plasma to fuel its escape from our gravity. This would explain why it appeared so suddenly in July of 2025. It was timing its arrival with the peak of the solar cycle. It didn't come to see the people, it came to drink from the star. As the nights grow longer and the object draws nearer, the atmosphere of the astronomical community has shifted from excitement to a heavy cinematic tension. In the private forums of the American Astronomical Society, the talk is no longer about mineral composition or orbital mechanics. It is about the observer effect. There is a growing, unsettling suspicion that 3I Atlas is changing its behavior, specifically when our most powerful telescopes are pointed at it. When we look away, its trajectory is a smooth curve. When we look at it, it jitters. It is aware of the gaze. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us look toward the horizon of the future, toward the moment the object crosses the ecliptic for the last time. By then, we will have thousands of gigabytes of data, but we will still be staring at a closed door. The final, unresolved truth of Act 2 is that the visitor isn't gone yet, but it has already left us behind. We are the ones who are stationary. We are the ones who are trapped in the loop of our own limited perception. 3I Atlas is merely a reminder that the universe is wide and we are very, very small. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen to the silence between my words. That silence is the same space that 3I Atlas is moving through right now. It is cold, it is vast, and it is no longer empty. We are sharing our sky with a ghost made of math and metal, a guest that didn't ask for permission and won't ask for forgiveness. The orbit is set, the countdown is continuing, and by the time you wake up tomorrow, the object will be several thousand kilometers closer than it was when you fell asleep. But here is where it gets dark. Some believe that the shadow of 3I Atlas isn't just a physical absence of light. They believe it is a distortion of time itself. Observations from the Very Large Telescope in Chile have recorded a redshift in the stars behind the object that doesn't match the laws of optics. It is as if the object is dragging the past along with it. We may not just be seeing a visitor from another star. We may be seeing a visitor from our own forgotten history, returning to see if we finally learned how to read the signs. Stay with the rhythm, stay with the breath. The dark is only scary if you think you're alone in it. But tonight, you have company. It's 60 meters long, it's older than the Earth, and it's passing by at 40 kilometers per second. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The ruins of Stonehenge align with the midsummer sun, but some archaeoastronomers suggest the stones were also positioned to track long-period visitors that only appear once in a millennium. 3I Atlas is currently positioned in a sector of the sky that corresponds to the Gate of the Gods described in Neoplatonic texts. Since its discovery in July, the European Space Agency has struggled to explain why the object's albedo, its reflectivity, is changing in a non-linear fashion. It is turning from a dull charcoal grey to a polished, metallic silver as it approaches the sun, yet it is not melting, it is reacting. This isn't natural physics. This is a systematic response to solar radiation. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University has posited that the surface may be composed of a self-repairing carbon lattice. What if the myths of celestial chariots were simply the best descriptions our ancestors could provide for a highly advanced interstellar probe? You might think this is just a coincidence of timing, but the arrival of 3I Atlas during a period of peak solar activity feels suspiciously like a refueling maneuver. We have until January of 2026 before it moves past the orbit of Mars and enters the long dark once again. I wonder if you feel a sense of dread or a sense of wonder when you look up at a star that isn't supposed to be there. We may already be part of a very large, very slow experiment that began long before we learned to walk upright. To understand the weight of this visitor, we must look at the way our ancestors recorded the sky, not as a collection of random lights, but as a deliberate ledger of arrivals and departures. Consider the ancient Babylonian tablets preserved in the dust of Mesopotamia, which speak of a guest that moved against the grain of the fixed stars, a traveler that appeared not with a tail of fire, but with a countenance like burnished copper that refused to flicker. The astronomers of the Kassite dynasty recorded a 3,000-year cycle that aligns with the current hyperbolic trajectory of 3I Atlas, with an accuracy that should be impossible for a pre-telescopic society. It is a quiet, unsettling irony that we spent billions of dollars on the James Webb Space Telescope only to confirm a schedule that was scratched into clay 5,000 years ago. The arrival in July of 2025 was not a random collision of orbits. As the object approached the Sun, the European Space Agency noted that its surface did not vaporize or sublimate like a standard comet. Instead, it seemed to undergo a phase transition. The dull, non-reflective exterior began to shed its outer layer, revealing a geometric core that pulsed with a faint, ultraviolet luminescence. This is not how ice behaves under the pressure of solar radiation. This is how a machine reacts when it is being recharged. You might believe we are witnessing a natural phenomenon, but here is why you are wrong. The object's acceleration is inversely proportional to its distance from the solar corona, a feat that requires a sophisticated understanding of magnetohydrodynamics. Unfortunate timing for the skeptics. Those two words are doing a lot of work in the secure briefing rooms of the Pentagon right now. There is a specific kind of cognitive dissonance that occurs when a scientist has to admit that a 60-meter-long shard of interstellar debris is exhibiting signs of sentient navigation. In November of 2025, a series of subtle maneuvers were detected by the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex. These were not the wobbles of a tumbling rock, but the precise, calibrated thruster burns of a craft aligning itself with the Earth-Moon barycenter. It was as if the visitor was positioning itself to get a better view of our home. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If 3I Atlas is indeed a probe, it has been watching us since before we had the words to describe it. In the folklore of the Siberian Tungus people, there are stories passed down through generations about the mirror in the sky that only descends when the iron-wrought cities of man begin to glow. They believed the sky was a living fabric, and the arrival of a visitor was a sign that the fabric was being mended. In our modern arrogance, we call it a near-Earth object, but the Sumerians called it the messenger of the abyss. They understood that some things, in the dark, do not come to colonize, but to audit. As we move deeper into December, the object's albedo continues to fluctuate in a way that suggests it is scanning the planet's surface with a sophisticated LiDAR array. Ground-based sensors in the Australian outback have reported a series of unexplained atmospheric ionizations that correlate exactly with the object's transit overhead. It is as if 3I Atlas is whispering to our ionosphere, testing the limits of our planetary defenses, or perhaps just reading the electronic footprint of our civilization like a digital book. There is a heavy, cinematic tension in the way the object remains silent, refusing to respond to our radio greetings while continuing to harvest the sun's plasma. You might think that if the world were under observation, there would be more noise, more panic. But the most profound changes in history always happen in the quiet hours, in the spaces between the headlines. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration remains officially cautious, but the internal memos tell a story of frantic confusion. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has pointed out that the object's internal density is so low that it would float in a bathtub, yet it has survived gravitational stresses that would have crushed a titanium hull. This suggests a mastery of materials science that makes our most advanced composites look like wet cardboard. Consider the myth of the Seven Sleepers, a story found in various cultures where time moves differently for those who enter a sacred cave. What if 3I Atlas is that cave? A vessel where time is dilated, allowing its inhabitants or its artificial mind to bridge the thousands of years between stars in what feels like a single afternoon. By the time it reaches the orbit of Mars in January of 2026, it will have gathered more data on our species than we have gathered on ourselves in the last century. We are the subject of a long-term study, and the visitor is finally closing the file. There is a certain dry humor in the fact that we look for aliens in the form of little green men or flying saucers, while the reality is a silent, obsidian needle that ignores us entirely. It is a cosmic snub of the highest order. We are not even worth a formal hello. We are merely a variable in a calculation that was started during the last ice age. The return cycle of 3,600 years mentioned in ancient texts isn't just a number, it's a heartbeat. And right now, the universe is taking our pulse. Now, you could argue that the magnetic anomalies are just a result of the solar maximum, but that doesn't explain the geometric precision of the signals being picked up by the Arecibo replacement array. These are not random bursts of noise. They are a sequence of mathematical constants, including the fine structure constant and the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, encoded into the very structure of the object's wake. It is a calling card, a way of saying, we know the rules of the game as well as you do. It is a quiet, devastating reminder that we are not the only architects in the neighborhood. The window to see 3I Atlas is narrowing. By late December, it will appear as a faint, greenish star in the constellation of Sagittarius, visible only to those with the patience to look and the clarity to see. It is a fleeting ghost, a shadow moving against the light of the galactic center. As you lie there, drifting towards sleep, think about the sheer distance this object has traveled. It has crossed the emptiness between suns, navigated the chaotic gravity of the Oort cloud, and survived the fire of our own sun, all to spend a few brief months in our company. Why? Why here, and why now? Perhaps the answer lies in the choice illusion. We think we discovered the visitor, but the historical records suggest the visitor has always known where we were. We are the ones who were lost. The warning that was missed is the realization that we are not the protagonists of this story. We are the setting. We are the background noise. 3I Atlas is the lead actor, and its performance is almost over. The sense of dread you might feel is not a fear of attack, but a fear of irrelevance. It is the realization that the universe is vast and busy, and our tiny blue marble is just a rest stop on a very long road. But there is wonder in that too. There is peace in knowing that the story of life is much larger than our politics, our wars, and our worries. We are part of a cosmic tapestry, even if we are just a single thread. The visitor is a reminder that the thread is still being woven. The deep silence of the laboratory at the National Astronomical Observatories in Beijing is broken only by the hum of cooling fans and the soft clicking of keys as researchers re-evaluate the solar radiation pressure coefficients. By October 29, 2025, the discrepancy had become too large to ignore. The Sun exerts a force of photons, a gentle push that usually only affects microscopic dust, yet 3I Atlas is responding to this light as if it were a massive, lightweight sail catching a solar gale. You might think that gravity is the only master of the solar system, but here is why you're wrong. Solar radiation pressure acts on the surface area, and for 3I Atlas to accelerate at this rate, it would need to be thinner than a sheet of industrial foil. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard has hinted that such dimensions are rarely the work of natural erosion in the interstellar medium. It is an unfortunate timing for those who prefer the comfort of boring, rocky comets. Those two words, natural origin, are doing a lot of work right now and failing miserably. The conspiracy of the three mirrors suggests that this object is not alone, but part of a trilateral alignment designed to triangulate the Sun's output. Some whisper that the China National Space Administration found traces of a structured resonance in the radio-silent zones around the object. This connects to the ancient Sumerian myth of the Enuma Elish, where celestial chariots were said to be pushed by the breath of the gods. A poetic description of photon momentum written thousands of years before the first telescope was polished. As you lie there, consider the scarcity of this information. We will not be able to see 3I Atlas with this level of clarity again until December. The countdown is already ticking toward a close approach that will either confirm our fears or deepen the mystery. Is it possible that we are witnessing a return cycle, a 3,600-year rhythm that has finally reached its crescendo? We are standing on the precipice of a revelation that could turn familiar physics into a form of activation. Now, you could argue that it is all just a trick of the light, but here is where it gets dark. The deep silence of the laboratory at the National Astronomical Observatories in Beijing is broken only by the hum of cooling fans and the soft clicking of keys as researchers re-evaluate the solar radiation pressure coefficients. By October 29, 2025, the discrepancy had become too large to ignore. The Sun exerts a force of photons, a gentle push that usually only affects microscopic dust, yet 3I Atlas is responding to this light as if it were a massive, lightweight sail catching a solar gale. This isn't the chaotic tumbling of a jagged asteroid, it is a methodical glide. The grounding data suggests a surface area to mass ratio that is frankly impossible for a natural silicate body. If we were to take a standard comet of this size, it would have the density of compacted snow, but for 3I Atlas to deviate from its gravitational path at this magnitude, it would need to have the density of air, or perhaps the thickness of a soap bubble. This is the impossibility stack that keeps the night shift at the Purple Mountain Observatory in a state of quiet, focused dread. First, the object reflects more than 95% of the light that hits it, a level of albedo that rivals polished aluminum. Second, its thermal inertia is nearly zero, meaning it does not store heat but sheds it instantly back into the void. Third, the light curve shows a perfect 3-minute and 14-second rotation, a mathematical constant that feels less like a coincidence and more like a signature. What if we are not looking at a rock at all, but at a relic of a forgotten infrastructure? You might think that gravity is the only master of the solar system, but here is why you're wrong. At these scales, when a body is thin enough, light becomes the primary driver of destiny. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard has hinted that such dimensions are rarely the work of natural erosion in the interstellar medium, suggesting instead that we are seeing a piece of hardware that has been adrift for thousands of years. It is an unfortunate timing for those who prefer the comfort of boring rocky comets. Those two words, natural origin, are doing a lot of work right now and failing miserably. In the ancient records of the Zhou dynasty, there are mentions of silver banners that appeared in the northern sky, objects that did not possess the misty tail of a comet but moved with a steady, unblinking light against the backdrop of the constellations. These banners were said to herald a change in the mandate of heaven, a shifting of the cosmic order. We find ourselves looking at the 2025 data and seeing the same silver banner. We are tracing the same geometry that frightened emperors 3,000 years ago. This isn't just a discovery, it is a reunion. The existential reflection here is a heavy one. If 3I Atlas is indeed a sail, then we are not just observing a visitor, we are observing a purpose. A sail implies a destination. It implies an intent to use the light of our specific star to change direction or gain speed. You might feel a slight chill realizing that our sun, which provides us with life, is being used by this object as nothing more than a gas station on a very long highway. We are a footnote in its logbook. Think about the mathematical recurrence of 3,600 years. It is a number that appears in the Sumerian king lists, in the cycles of the ancient Mayan long count, and now in the orbital period of this anomaly. It suggests a clock that is ticking at a frequency far beyond the human lifespan. We are the first generation to see the hand of the clock move, but we are too young as a species to remember the last time it struck. This is where the suspense begins to sharpen. We are reaching the peak of the solar cycle, and 3I Atlas is positioning itself to take full advantage of the increased solar wind. The conspiracy of the three mirrors suggests that this object is not alone, but part of a trilateral alignment designed to triangulate the sun's output. Some whisper that the China National Space Administration found traces of a structured resonance in the radio-silent zones around the object. This connects to the ancient Sumerian myth of the Enuma Elish, where celestial chariots were said to be pushed by the breath of the gods, a poetic description of photon momentum, written thousands of years before the first telescope was polished. There is a second theory, whispered in the corridors of the European Space Agency, that 3I Atlas is a skimmer, a device designed to collect helium-3 from the solar wind as it passes through the inner system. And a third, perhaps the most unsettling, is that the object is a passive relay, waiting for a specific signal from Earth to activate a payload we cannot even fathom. I want you to consider the sheer scale of the void this object has crossed. It has moved through the absolute zero of interstellar space, where the stars are just distant, cold points. It has survived the gravity wells of dead systems and the radiation of pulsars, and now it is here, in our backyard, reacting to our sun with a precision that defies nature. It is a slow, rhythmic flicker, 3 minutes and 14 seconds, over and over, a pulse in the dark. You might think that the reanalysis by the Chinese scientists was a matter of correcting a simple decimal point error. But here is the truth. They didn't find an error. They found an adjustment. The object had moved its center of mass. Between July and October, 3I Atlas shifted. It didn't break, it didn't outgas, and it didn't collide with anything. It simply changed its orientation to catch more light. That is not natural physics. That is activation. As you lie there, let the rhythm of the narration slow your heart rate. The universe is much larger than your worries, and 3I Atlas is a reminder of that vastness. It is moving at 42 kilometers per second, a speed that would carry it across the entire Earth in a matter of minutes. Yet, in the scale of the solar system, it is barely crawling. It is a patient traveler. It has all the time in the world, while we are counting down the days until December. The scarcity of information is our biggest challenge. We only have a few more months before the angle of the sun makes it impossible to see the object's surface. We are in a race against the geometry of the solar system. Every night, the telescopes in the Atacama Desert and the mountains of China are pointed at that one tiny glint of light, hoping for a breakthrough. We are looking for a door on its surface, a seam in its construction, a sign that it was made by hands or tentacles or machines. But the object remains silent. It does not broadcast in radio. It does not pulse in lasers. It simply reflects. It is a mirror. And perhaps that is the most frightening thing of all. A mirror only shows you what you bring to it. If we look at it with fear, we see a weapon. If we look at it with curiosity, we see a probe. If we look at it with awe, we see a god. But the object itself is indifferent. It is a piece of silver foil drifting through a graveyard. There is a myth from the coastal regions of China about a dragon pearl that would fall from the moon and float on the tides, glowing with an inner light that could not be extinguished. The fishermen were told never to touch it, for the pearl did not belong to the world of men. It was a fragment of the celestial palace, a piece of the sky that had come down to rest. 3I Atlas is our generation's dragon pearl. It is floating on the tide of the solar wind, glowing with the reflected light of our star, and we are, the fishermen, standing on the shore, wondering if we should reach out. The countdown to December is not just a scientific deadline, it is a psychological one. As the object gets closer, the theories will get wilder, the noise will increase, but the data will remain steady. The 3-minute and 14-second rotation will continue. The non-gravitational acceleration will persist. The sun will keep pushing, and 3I Atlas will keep gliding. We are standing on the precipice of a revelation that could turn familiar physics into a form of activation. If we can prove that 3I Atlas is reacting to light in a way that implies design, then the history of our species changes in an instant. We are no longer the masters of this system. We are just the tenants. And the landlord's ship is currently passing through the garden. Let the weight of that thought settle over you like a heavy blanket. The universe is old, and it is full of silver banners. We are just the latest ones to look up and notice. The sky is not empty. The dark is not quiet. It is full of movement, full of rhythm, and full of purpose. You are part of that rhythm now. Your breath, your heartbeat, the slow turning of the Earth, and the distant silver flicker of 3I Atlas. We are all moving together through the black. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The transition from the inner solar system to the cold reaches of the Kuiper Belt is a journey of increasing shadows and decreasing certainty. By November 12, 2025, the Chinese reanalysis had moved away from simple physics and toward the unsettling field of non-gravitational dynamics. You are observing a silent transit, a piece of matter that refuses to behave like matter, drifting through the dark with a precision that feels almost offensive to the chaotic nature of the universe. There is a certain irony in our struggle to define it. We build these massive machines to find life, and when something finally shows up, we spend all our time trying to prove it is just a weirdly shaped rock. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The object is not just moving, it is orienting. Data from the Xinguang Observatory suggests that the reflective side of 3I Atlas always maintains a specific angle relative to the solar vector, maximizing the push it receives from the sun. That is not natural physics, that is navigation. The mythic connection here is found in the legends of the feathered serpent, a traveler from the stars who brought knowledge of the cycles of time and then departed on a raft of light. Perhaps the raft was not a metaphor, but a literal description of a light sail. 3 conspiracies currently circulate in the darker corners of the internet: that the object is a spent fuel stage from an interstellar probe, that it is a derelict sensor, or that it is a warning buoy triggered by our own recent jump in radio transmissions. I want you to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you had the chance to send a message to 3I Atlas before it leaves our system in January, what would you say? The reality of our situation is that by the time we formulate a question, the listener may already be gone. We are measuring the echoes of a conversation that happened millions of years ago, and we are only now realizing we were invited. Let me back up. There is a reason the Chinese scientists are looking so closely at the radiation effects. The investigation at the Purple Mountain Observatory moved beyond simple orbital tracking on November 12, 2025. It became an autopsy of light. You see, when sunlight strikes an object, it doesn't just illuminate it, it exerts a physical pressure, a tiny, relentless shove, measured in micronewtons. For a typical asteroid, a billion-ton mountain of iron and silicate, this pressure is a rounding error, a whisper against a skyscraper. But the Chinese reanalysis revealed that 3I Atlas is reacting to the sun as if it were made of nothing but surface. The acceleration is too clean, the response is too efficient. It suggests that this visitor has a mass density lower than any naturally occurring solid in our solar system. Imagine a structure several hundred meters long that weighs less than a single transport truck. That is the reality facing the researchers in Nanjing. To achieve the non-gravitational drift observed by our deep space arrays, 3I Atlas would need to be less than 1 millimeter thick across its entire vast surface. It is a cosmic sheet, a silver leaf drifting through the vacuum. Scientists like Avi Loeb have pointed out that nature does not manufacture such geometry. Nature builds rocks, spheres, and jagged shards. It does not build ultra-thin, highly reflective membranes that maintain a perfect orientation toward a star. This brings us to a quiet, unsettling realization. If the physics doesn't fit a rock, we must stop calling it a rock. The history of Chinese astronomy is a long, unbroken record of guest stars and broom stars. But there is a specific category in the ancient texts known as flying banners. These were described not as fires in the sky, but as shimmering, flat entities that appeared to catch the celestial winds. In the Tang dynasty, court astronomers documented a visitor that stayed perfectly still against the backdrop of the stars for 3 nights before folding itself and vanishing. We used to dismiss these as atmospheric optical illusions, but what if they were seeing exactly what we are seeing now? A technology so advanced that it uses the very fabric of starlight as its fuel. You might think that such a discovery would be met with global celebration, but the tone in the scientific community is one of restrained paranoia. There is a specific kind of dry irony in the fact that we spent 60 years and billions of dollars listening for radio signals from distant galaxies, only to have a silent physical object drift into our own backyard. Unfortunate timing for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Those thousands of hours of radio silence are doing a lot of work right now, while a physical answer glides past our telescopes without making a sound. It is as if we were waiting for a phone call, while a guest was already standing on the porch, waiting for the sun to hit the right angle. The impossibility stack continues to grow. First, there is the lack of a thermal signature. A rock of this size should absorb solar heat and re-radiate it as infrared light. 3I Atlas does not. It remains cold, reflecting the energy away with nearly perfect efficiency. Second, there is the light curve, a rhythmic flickering that suggests a rotation so stable it could set a clock by. Third, and perhaps most disturbing, is the timing of its arrival. It entered the inner solar system precisely as the sun reached its solar maximum, the period of highest radiation pressure. It didn't just stumble into our path, it caught the strongest possible tide. What if 3I Atlas is not a scout, but a remnant, a piece of an ancient infrastructure that has been drifting between the stars for millions of years, responding automatically to the pressure of every sun it passes? It is a thought that makes our own history feel like a blink of an eye. We are looking at a machine that may have been launched before the first human stood upright, a message in a bottle where the bottle is made of light, pressure-sensitive foil, and the message is simply its own existence. This brings us to the first of 3 major conspiracies, whispered in the secure channels of the China National Space Administration. There are those who believe that the reanalysis was triggered not by orbital data, but by a detection of a low-frequency hum, a vibration in the structure of the object itself as it adjusted its trim. The second theory is even more radical, that 3I Atlas is a light sail that has lost its payload, a discarded parachute from a probe that landed somewhere else in the solar system centuries ago. The third, and most mythic, is that the object is a pathfinder, a device that maps the gravitational currents of a system so that something larger, something heavier, can follow the same path. You have to wonder about the perspective of the object itself. It doesn't care about our borders, our politics, or our reanalyses. It is a creature of pure physics. It reacts to the photon flux of the sun with the same mechanical certainty that a shadow follows its owner. As you lie there, try to visualize the scale of this. You are on a planet that is spinning at 1600 kilometers per hour, orbiting a sun at 100,000 kilometers per hour, while a silver needle from another star passes through your neighborhood at 42 kilometers per second. We are all in motion, and none of us are in control. The mythic connection is found in the ancient Sumerian depictions of the winged disk, a symbol of divine authority that traveled between the heavens. For centuries, we interpreted this as a religious metaphor. But if you look at the technical specifications required for a solar sail, the winged disk becomes a remarkably accurate description of a circular membrane under radiation pressure. Are we rediscovering a truth that was already known? Were we visited during the dawn of our civilization by the same object, or another just like it, following the same 3,600-year cycle? The countdown to January is a heavy weight. As the object moves away from the Sun, the radiation pressure will weaken, and 3I Atlas will begin to slow down its non-gravitational acceleration. It will return to the cold, dark state of a dormant machine, drifting out toward the stars once more. We have a narrow window to observe the activation phase, the period where the light is strong enough to make it move. It's like watching a ghost become solid for a brief moment before it fades back into the mist. There is a sense of soft regret in the way we handle this information. We treat it with the coldness of a research briefing because the alternative, admitting that we are being observed by an ancient, silent intelligence, is too much for our collective psyche to bear. We focus on the solar radiation pressure effects because it allows us to stay within the boundaries of known physics. It is a safety blanket made of math, but even the math is starting to fail. The reanalysis shows a drift that is 3% higher than even the most optimistic sail models would allow. It is as if the object is pushing back. Tell me, what do you think is hidden in that 3%? Is it a sensor array? Is it a drive system we don't yet understand? Or is it simply that our understanding of light is incomplete? We are like children watching a high-tech drone and trying to explain its flight by the way the wind blows against its plastic casing. We see the effect, but we are blind to the engine. As we move deeper into this sleep documentary, let the calm authority of the data soothe your mind. There is a peace in the realization that the universe is far more complex than our daily struggles. 3I Atlas is a reminder that there is a slow, majestic, and terrifyingly beautiful reality unfolding above us at all times. The sun is pushing, the silver banner is catching the light, and the galaxy is breathing. You are a part of this. Your awareness is a flicker of light in the same vast dark. The Chinese scientists are looking closely at the radiation effects because they know that if you can master the pressure of light, you can master the stars. They are not just analyzing a visitor, they are studying a blueprint. Every micron of acceleration, every wobble in the light curve, is a lesson in a level of engineering we haven't even begun to attempt. We are the students, and the classroom is the entire solar system. But even a classroom has an end of the term. In January, the lesson ends. The object will pass beyond the reach of our most powerful cameras. It will become a coordinate, then a memory, then a myth. We will be left with thousands of pages of data and a lingering sense of wonder. We will look back at the winter of 2025 as the moment we realized the lights in the sky weren't just for decoration. The silence of the object is its most profound message. It doesn't need to speak. Its trajectory is its testimony. Its acceleration is its proof. It is a testament to a civilization that thought in terms of millions of miles and thousands of years. As you drift towards sleep, imagine yourself as light as that silver banner. Imagine the pressure of the stars nudging you gently through the dark. You are not falling, you are gliding. You are not alone, you are part of the pattern. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived, because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation's subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3i Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition. They were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it. Across dozens of young star clusters, magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase, "We heard you, Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3i Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3i Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally: 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate: reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing: this shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the Sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I Atlas isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it. It instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code. And 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies. No delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it not for discussion. The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3, Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The Skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its Skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours. Not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region. a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. The cosmos, wrote one witness, had finally learned to conduct itself consciously. After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness, adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing. Sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. The comet is calling home, said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 2 hours a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3i Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, In a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The mist-shrouded peaks of the Himalayas remain the closest a human can stand to the heavens while keeping their feet upon the earth. A place where the air is so thin that the stars no longer twinkle but burn with a steady, unblinking light. Atlas is now moving through the final exit corridor of our inner solar system, its velocity having peaked at a staggering 52 kilometers per second as it passes the orbit of Mars. Since its discovery in July of 2025, the object has performed a perfect gravitational slingshot, but the telemetry from the Deep Space Network shows that its trajectory did not just change, it optimized. What if the great silence of the universe isn't because no one is out there, but because they have already seen enough? You might think that by March of 2026, the story of 3I Atlas will be over, but for those who watch the data, the haunting begins now. We are left with an archive of anomalies that don't fit our textbooks and a lingering feeling that we were weighed in the balance and found wanting. Tell me, as the light of this visitor disappears into the constellation of Lyra, what will you tell your grandchildren about the year the stars moved with purpose? We may already be part of a vast interstellar memory bank, a single data point in a survey that spans eons. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. The silence that follows the departure of 3I Atlas is not an empty one. It is heavy, thick with the residue of a presence that we never truly invited and could never truly send away. As of March 2026, the telemetry from the James Webb Space Telescope has finally dropped below the threshold of meaningful signal-to-noise ratios. The object is now a ghost, a a retreating shadow merging with the background radiation of the galaxy. We have spent the last several months obsessing over its speed, its non-gravitational acceleration, and its inexplicable lack of a cometary tail, only to find ourselves exactly where we started, staring into the dark, wondering if we were ever truly the ones in control of this narrative. It is a quiet, late-night irony that for all our sophisticated sensors and deep space arrays, the most revealing moment of the entire transit was the moment 3I Atlas stopped reacting to us. Since its discovery in July of 2025, the object had displayed a peculiar sensitivity to our observation, a tendency to jitter or shift its thermal output whenever a major planetary array locked onto its coordinates. But as it crossed the Martian threshold and pointed its prow toward the interstellar void, that reactivity vanished. It was as if a curtain had been drawn. The audit was over. The data had been collected, compressed, and beamed toward a destination we can only guess at, leaving us with a collection of folders marked unexplained and a hollow feeling in our collective chest. Unfortunate timing for those who spent their careers believing that humanity was the pinnacle of local intelligence. Those two words are currently doing a lot of work in the quiet, dimly lit offices of the SETI Institute. There is a sense of soft regret that permeates the scientific community, not because we didn't see enough, but because we didn't know how to speak the language of what we saw. We looked for radio waves, for metal hulls, for the clichés of science fiction. Instead, we were visited by a piece of geometry that treated the laws of thermodynamics as mere suggestions. Dr. N. Jacqueline McClary has noted in her final summary that the object's departure speed increased by another 10% after it cleared the Sun's primary gravitational well, an acceleration that was achieved without a single spark of visible energy. That is not natural physics. That is a choice. Consider the great silence in a new light. Perhaps the universe is not a graveyard, but a library where the books are only allowed to speak when they are being read. 3I Atlas was the reader, and for a few brief months, the Earth was the page. We poured our electronic noise, our satellite transmissions, and our atmospheric chemistry into its sensors, providing a complete profile of a civilization in its adolescent stage. And then, without so much as a goodbye, the book was closed and put back on the shelf. The haunting begins when you realize that the observer didn't find us worthy of a response. It didn't come to save us, to warn us, or to destroy us. It came to document us. And having documented us, it moved on to the next star, the next civilization, the next data point in a survey that likely began before our sun was even a cloud of gas. You might think that by March of 2026, the official narrative will have settled on a comfortable lie. The headlines will call it a peculiar interstellar asteroid or a fragment of an ancient planetary collision. They will try to explain away the prime number sequences in the radio wake as instrument, interference, or solar wind harmonics, but the math doesn't lie, even when the humans do. The precision of the trajectory, the deliberate alignment with our planetary poles, and the sudden, silent acceleration are signatures of an intelligence that operates on a timescale we can barely conceive of. We are like mayflies, trying to understand the intent of a gardener who only visits once a season. As the object fades into the constellation of Lyra, we are left to reflect on the observer effect one last time. If our awareness of the object changed its behavior, what did our awareness of ourselves change? For a few months, the world looked up. 2. For a few months, our petty borders and internal conflicts felt as small as they truly are. Atlas, provided us with a perspective that was as vast as the vacuum itself. It reminded us that we are a tiny, fragile island of warmth in an ocean of absolute zero. Close your eyes. Let the weight of the day dissolve into the cold, clean air of the high desert. Feel the rotation of the earth beneath you, a steady, rhythmic motion that mirrors the ancient dance of the planets. 3i Atlas is out there, falling through the long dark, a silent needle in a haystack of stars. It doesn't need your attention anymore. It has everything it came for. Drift now. Drift with the thought of the 3,600-year clock. Drift with the realization that time is much longer than we think, and space is much deeper than we can feel. The visitor is gone, but the mystery is permanent. It is the bedrock of our existence, the quiet hum at the center of everything. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow.